All right, we'll start the meeting and hopefully Dan, I think we're missing Dan and Lauren, if they come. We won't do the presentation anyways right away, so you should be able to let them in, Kathy. So why don't
Okay.
we'll call the meeting to order at 6:01. So I will start with attendance. I am here. Ken,
Present? Yep.
all right. Jamie,
Present.
all right. Lauren, I don't see her on the scroll here. Let's see. No, I don't see Lauren just yet. Dave,
Here.
there he is. Hey, Dave. Dan, I don't see Dan just yet. Let's scroll to there. I don't see Dan. Nancy
Here.
and Jason. I know I saw Jason.
Present.
All right. Yeah, Leisha said she wasn't going to attend. So we do have 5 voting members, so we have a quorum. So we will move forward. So I will start with reading the remote meeting procedures. Yep. The meeting will be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by board commission members will be remote, and remote attendance shall count towards quorum. The meeting will be broadcast live and recorded on ECAT. To use Zoom, you'll need to use the link on the agenda or download the Zoom application at www.zoom.us and create an account or use one with the calling numbers listed on the agenda. You will need the webinar ID to join by phone only. While conducting meetings remotely, we'll endeavor to keep the meeting operations as close to our standard procedures as possible. However, the use of this platform will necessitate some additional meeting protocols. For the board members or commissioners, applicants will be on video and audio. Public participants will join the webinar as attendees, meaning they are muted with no video feed from them. During the public testimony portion of the meeting, members of the public can be recognized by using the raise hand function found on the participants from Zoom or make a request with the Q&A function. If you're joining only by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. If an applicant wishes to display materials, please make the request to the chair and the email materials to board staff for sharing on the screen. Starting testimony, please state your name and address for the record. There is a markup function in Zoom which allows you to call out specific areas of presentation materials. Within any public meeting, indecent behavior will not be tolerated. Anyone who abuses use of the meeting platform will be terminated from the meeting. Business will be handled at the times indicated on the agenda. Business not concluded in the allotted time will be tabled to the end of the meeting to allow for timely logins and remote attendance. Board members are asked to announce themselves when making a motion and second so that it will be clear to the audience. The minute takers who made motions, all votes will be by roll call. When all business indicated on the agenda has been completed, the members will vote to adjourn the meetings, signaling the end of the meeting and terminating of the ECAT recording. All participants will be disconnected from the webinar at that time. Applicants will join the webinar as an attendee and promoted to panelist at their agenda item. Applicants will then be able to share their screens and present their materials. As such, as much as possible, presentation materials should be provided beforehand so that materials can be included in the public record. Individual board chairs and staff may wish to keep screen sharing to their computer. Applicants are encouraged to speak with staff prior to the meeting on how materials will be presented. So there's that. All right. So we will start with the approval of the August 20th, 2024 meeting minutes. I had sent those out, I think, at the end of last week. Did anybody have any questions, comments, concerns about the meeting minutes, our last meeting? All right. Seeing none, I will take a motion to accept those meeting minutes.
So move. Stebbins.
Stebbins, do I have a second?
Second, Carlson.
Carlson. All right, we'll go to roll call vote. I am a yes. Ken?
Yes.
All right, Jamie?
Yes.
All right, Nancy?
Yes.
And Jason?
Yes.
All right, so those pass unanimously.
I'm also.
I just want. Oh, you're here? Hey, all right. I was gonna say, all right, Lauren, you are here.
Mhm.
Are you good with those meeting
Yes.
minutes? All
Mhm.
right. All right. And Dan's not on here yet, is he? Because I didn't see Dan initially. No, I don't see him. All right. All right, so we'll move on to the old business. Dave, if you want to just give us a quick rundown of the water treatment facility project.
Sure, things are progressing nicely. Working on final punch list items for the treatment plant, and we're trying to get approval for remote operation from DEP. Other than that, I have no update. Happy to answer any questions.
And I know I probably asked this 6 times, but I'll keep forgetting, Dave. Is there a certificate of occupancy for that building? Does it
Not
need one?
not a final yet.
Yeah, okay, but it needs one, right? I think it's
It does,
okay. Yeah, so just on the temp. Okay.
correct.
All right. Anyone have any questions, comments, concerns about the water treatment facility project? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on. Thanks, Dave. I don't know, Walt, if you just wanted to hit the early elementary school project.
Yeah, sure. Yep,
Okay.
no problem. We are down to, I believe, 4 punch list items and 4 warranty items that are being tracked. Looking to get those wrapped up. A couple mechanical items, a couple envelope items, actually 1 envelope item. Getting those wrapped up as soon as we can. We are still waiting on a response from the lead consultant as to the status of our submission for lead. So we haven't heard from them yet. Responses went back in, so we're waiting on that. Once that's finalized, we'll have another document ready for the MSBA. We're waiting a response from the TRC on 1 item for the final change, or for the potential final change order that we're anticipating. So once we have that response as to the direction that's heading, we'll get that work wrapped up if it's moved forward, and then we'll wrap up that final change order. So kind of 3 items that are outstanding, and then it's just documentation at that point that needs to be paperwork filled out by the town, paperwork filled out by the district through PMA. We'll get that over to the MSBA and hopefully get on their books for closeout as soon as possible.
Alrighty, and we're still on a temp COO on that, right?
Unless something changed while I was out, Chris, I don't believe it did, right? We're on temp. Yep, I'm still on the temp.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right. Anyone have any questions, comments, concerns about the early elementary school project? All right. Seeing none, why don't we move to the public safety and public works project update if you folks want to take the screen.
Andy, I'm just having trouble getting Dan in, but I think he
Okay.
can hear it.
Looks like he's in.
Okay.
He's in? Okay, thank you.
Let me just see. Let me scroll through here. Do you see him there somewhere? Oh, yeah, I see him. Dan, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay.
All
good.
right,
You're
good.
in.
Thank you.
All right, so I think we have, yeah, all the voting members are here. Okay, so why don't we proceed?
So can everybody see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right. So Walter, do you want to kick it off? Do you want us to kick it off?
I lost your screen. I just see you.
Yep, no worries. Everybody can see the slides?
Yes, yep, I
Yeah.
can.
All right.
Weird. Hold on. I must have done something. 1 second. I'm just getting you, Greg. Sorry.
That's all
There we go.
right.
All right,
I
I
can
can
run through.
No, I got it. I got it. So for tonight's agenda, we're going to be going over permitting status, really just conscom and planning and zoning. Design update from KBA on their work plan for the CD phase, along with updates from user groups. Those have been going great. Had great input from all the town departments and everyone who's volunteered their time for those. The PMA team and KBA team will go over the reconciliation of the 8% CD estimates. We have good news on that front yet again for this phase, so that's great. Value management, we carried this as an agenda item just in case. We don't believe at any point there is any value management necessary. Options can be discussed at the next meeting if there's any desire, but at this point we will be likely presenting an on-target budget. And then we'll go over schedule, next steps, and any comments or questions. Greg, if you want to take the first couple items.
Sure. And so just going through permitting, so we'll start at 524 Depot Street. We did have an additional meeting with conservation, received some comments back from the peer reviewer, and then had another meeting last night. Generally speaking, things went well. There are a couple kind of minor items, mostly kind of housekeeping items, I'd say, that we have to submit for kind of final review with conservation. And then the anticipated hearing for that final hearing and to close would be 10/7. And I think the order of conditions would actually follow a couple days after that. So the 10/7 here is probably a little aggressive. It'll probably be, 3 or 4 days after that. But at that 10/7 hearing, the commissioners will have the order or draft order of conditions in front of them and be able to vote on that for the final order of conditions for 524 Depot Street.
Hey, buddy.
Kind of concurrently to that, going in relatively soon, end of next week, early next week, will be planning and zoning. So again, a general site plan review permit for this project at 524 Depot. This review is primarily focused on site circulation, site orientation, making sure that things are safe, that parking is appropriate, and flow through the site works well. Additionally, it would be focused on stormwater, but since it's already gone through conservation with stormwater review, we think that most of those, it's the same peer review where the comments will be essentially identical, and we've gone through most and addressed most of the comments at this point. So we don't expect any real comment out of, peer review for stormwater. So that should kind of take care of itself. Why we've been waiting is obviously we don't want to, file for another round of permitting while we still have open site, stormwater items that need to be addressed, particularly if it's just going to get sent to the same peer reviewer. So now that we've kind of gotten over that bridge, no pun intended, we're able to wrap up that permitting package and we'll have it in. Shortly. Again, no real impact to the overall schedule here. We're in and able to go through these items, as we can. And we'll just jump to 321 Main Street. So we've just been holding off, making sure we get through Depot Street, which is a very challenging site. 321 Main Street, a little less challenging. No conservation, so that'll go in. That will need a site plan, just general site plan review. This will cover the stormwater on this portion because we are not going through conservation here because we're outside the delineated areas. So just a normal site plan review, no special permits, no zoning board of appeals, fairly straightforward. This is a bit simpler in kind of overall project size, scope, and impact. So this should be straightforward and easily addressed. So just a little bit of update on what happened during the conservation review. This is a similar slide that we showed last month. So in the process of reviewing the test pits, we did raise the grades a bit. And after we did that, submitted a revised design, the peer reviewer came back with questions about soil. So the way the design happens with stormwater, there are gradations of soils that are in a Mass State Stormwater Handbook. That gradation gives you a Rawls rate, or basically how fast the water sinks into the ground. The soils here are a little bit challenging, where there is soil that is, either highly compacted or otherwise restricted below it. So the peer reviewer, I think rightfully so, had questions about, are we really going to achieve the Rawls rate that the stormwater manual says based on the grain classification of the soils? So to kind of prove out our design, we went back into the field, did some additional infiltrometer testing. So fancy word for watching water soak into the ground, very scientifically. That testing came back a little bit of a mixed bag. There was one that was great, there was one that was less than great, and there were two that were kind of inconclusive. So we've modified the design slightly and taken out a little bit of that like restrictive soil layer in the design to make sure that we're achieving the infiltration rate that the design needs to be successful. Overall, it's a good process. It really does ensure that the system's going to function as designed and as intended, and it really didn't hurt us much on time or schedule. Didn't cost too much. The added excavation was only 3 or 4 inches in most places under these systems, so we'll take down basically 2 feet under the system and replace that with good draining soil, making sure that we get a good base layer under these systems to be able to make sure that they're functioning as designed. So that was kind of the big kind of item that we had to address, along with a number of other kind of relatively minor things going into that. Those seem to be addressed to the satisfaction of the peer reviewer. And so, this week we'll spend kind of putting that last package together, submitting that to conservation for their review for the final, hopefully the final meeting of conservation.
And Greg, who was the peer reviewer that the town used?
I think it's Strong Point Design out of, I think, West Bridgewater. It's the normal peer reviewer that I think conservation and I believe planning and zoning uses. So,
Yeah. And just one other question, that raised grade 1 foot, is that additional? Because you've raised, is that beyond the first raising that you've?
No,
we
so
raised
that's the same. We based on the original, we raised that 1 foot. We haven't raised the building anymore. The only real changes we've made are we moved around some chambers, Andy. We changed a couple from retention to detention, which is kind of a difference that's only important to civil engineers. And we just move some things around a bit. The big picture moves, the raising of the building, that happened once and didn't need to be adjusted again. And we took out, like I said, that little bit of a restrictive layer below the system. We took that out.
Okay.
Any other questions on permitting? I know if you've sat through it, it's quite intense and a little confusing sometimes. So happy to answer anything. All right. Well, we'll keep going then. In terms of designer work plan, more or less we're on track. We do have a couple items that are still in progress. Realistically, the due dates that we had on our original work plan were probably a little too aggressive. We came into the estimate for reconciliation just a touch late, so there are a couple things we have to get through and take care of here, but nothing that really impacts the overall project schedule or has any real impact other than just we need to get some documentation done for the work we've completed to date. Still on track for incorporating any comments on the 80% by that 10/8 date for your next meeting, and for the most part we'll have some good news coming up out of our estimate reconciliation slides in a few.
Greg, are we anticipating early packages or enabling work?
No, we're not anticipating early packages here. So those have been NA'd because we're bidding as one single project. Estimators felt that given the value, and I'll let Walter speak to this a bit more, we were at that size with just public works and public safety that you would potentially miss the smaller contractors because we were too big and miss the bigger contractors because we were too small. We were ending up in kind of that range where you don't have a lot of qualified general contractors, but also don't have a lot of bigger qualified, you know, GC CMs that are willing to take a project at the lower value. So by doing the entire project as one, we think there'll be a better interest with more capable contractors.
Yep. I just didn't know if you were thinking there was going to be site or foundation enabling
Yeah.
work, but I would tend to try to not do that if we can.
Yeah, so go ahead, Walter. You're muted.
We're capturing the advantage of that by bidding as one, instead of progressing the drawings fast on a couple of the those key areas. We're able to delay those slightly, but pick up the opportunity for, like Greg mentioned, with the more qualified contractors for the larger projects. But the other piece of that is that we are avoiding that small range on the fire substation, where we have seen a lot of issues with some smaller contractors, specifically no interest in projects at that size.
Yep.
So we're capturing the opportunity of site early packages by going out for the one GC.
Okay.
And so, you know, just we'll do a quick update. Again, we're primarily focusing here on the public safety building. We will have next month some additional slides for public works and fire substation, but we wanted to bring you up to speed on kind of where we've gotten. So this was the original image that we kind of talked about as we went into CDs. And this is the update from last month. So we've made some progress since then, and you know, Dan was nice enough to get on a call with Andy and I to go through a couple of these things and get some, you know, better feedback or more feedback from him, since he wasn't able to attend a couple of the last meetings. We appreciate any and all feedback, even if it is critical. So it is important for us to understand the committee's, you know, feelings and make sure we respond to any comments. So Dan, feel free to jump in. I kind of highlighted a couple of areas where we had conversations, and we'll see the response basically in the next slide. But I wanted to just talk through kind of, or let you talk through kind of some of the things we were looking at when we sat down last week to review. So this is one area where we had, you know, early on we had decided to do a primarily masonry building to make kind of cost-conscious decisions and really kind of bring that level of sophistication that masonry brings without bringing the level of cost that a lot of metal panel brings. So SD, we had a lot more metal panel. We pulled that back to masonry, I think, which was discussed with the committee very early. So you've been seeing a primarily masonry building, brick building since then. But we have some detailing going in to make it more than just a kind of flat brick wall. And these details were kind of competing with each other. So up at the roof edge, we had a very kind of traditional detail on a fairly modern building. And along the front facade, we had a fairly modern detail. So corbelling bricks, so basically pulling them out slightly from the face to get some shadow lines and things like that, that were kind of competing with each other. And Dan, I don't know if that summarizes kind of our conversation, but hopefully.
Yeah, no, I think it does.
Next, I think Dan pointed out, and we have this kind of like anchor on the far side of the building that is kind of referencing back to the main entry, but is a little bit detached. And so how does that kind of connect through? Kind of the third thing that we looked at is the main entry faces pretty much west, a little northwest, but pretty much west. And so late in the afternoon, particularly in the winter, right, you get some really strong sun coming in there. You can end up with a little bit of glare and things like that. So is there a way that we can keep the entry where we want it to be, but address some of those issues with solar heat gain and solar glare? And then I think, you know, one of the last things was, you know, that front mass that is the community room, just it, you know, how does it relate back to the rest of the building? And so, you know, the main entry is kind of a dark metal panel. The mass of the community room is a kind of a wood grain metal panel. So what can we do to make sure they are kind of speaking the same language and interacting in the right way? So this was the August update, right? So this was last month, and you'll start. Oh, sorry. So this is this month. Losing months here. So you'll start to see kind of what we've done to try to make these things kind of more consistent and a little bit more palatable. First, that band at the top that really produces our roof edge, right? We've taken and made that a little bit more intricate with some brick, and we're kind of turning the soldier coursing now, making it a little bit more modern, but keeping some detailing there to kind of emphasize the roof edge without it being very traditional. That area where we had the corbelling next to the window, we've taken that and kind of produced some lines in it. It just made it a little bit more clean and consistent so that it's tying through to the rest of the facade and not just a single element at one spot. We'll just move around a couple of the buildings and we'll go through the same progression in updates, right? So original update last month and then update this month. So again, bringing a couple of those details in the brick around, making sure that we're being, you know, modern, but also bringing some interest so the building has some detailing and interest to it. And Dan, this is the first time you're seeing these, so by all means, feel free to give some feedback. And also on the west facade, right? So is there something we can do to take down that solar glare and the heat gain that we get on that west facade? So an example of kind of what we've done in the past. Taking and adding some larger mullion caps to the curtain wall. So kind of extending that out. On the west facade, you want vertical shading and not horizontal shading. So oftentimes you'll see like horizontal sunshades on windows. On the west facade, we want them vertical. So as the sun comes around, you're blocking the sun out as it comes across the glass. And then two, can we add some fritting to the glass? So this is basically some dots to the glass that cuts down on that solar heat gain. So you'll see in the image here on the right, called out, this is a view from inside looking through on the bottom here, clear glass, you know, so where you can walk up to the glass and see out clear. And on the top, this is a pretty good image of the fritting. So you can see it basically looks clear most of the time you're in there. And you can also see the shading that's provided by those fins that are outside. So you can see here in the image, about a quarter of the glass gets shaded by those fins out on the west facade, so that you're able to cut that heat gain down by about a quarter. Some relatively minor adjustments, but with some big benefits on kind of the glare and the heat gain aspect. And so that would likely come down basically to where the canopy is, and below where you interact with the glass up close, that would be just regular clear glazing. So again, original facade, you can, you know, if you kind of look here, you know, bigger, more traditional roof edge, and we're just kind of slowly refining these things and making it a little cleaner. And then one thing we did talk about as well is just kind of the large overhang and canopy at the apparatus bay. So we'll take a look at that and see just a different option. So one thing that large overhangs do is kind of put in a lot of structure. And when you want them, right, when you want to have some large overhangs on the south side of the building or over a door, they're great. But when they're really tall like this, so 30 or so feet above the ground, and on the north side of the building, they don't do a ton of benefit. So can we reduce the cost of the structure? Can we slim those down? And can we provide a more efficient structure, but also kind of impact the design in a positive way? So again, same thing. We're going to look at, how does this tie through? This is the original, and this is this is the update from last month, and then this is the update from this month. So again, the kind of brightness of the image changes a little bit. The materials are all still the same, just the kind of organization of them are slightly different. Sorry, so that was the end of design kind of updates. I take comments, questions at this point because it'll probably be easier to flip back and forth. So,
Did anyone have any comments or questions on that? The only thing I was going to bring up, Greg, is that I think the brick color we talked about a little bit, right? So there's just so people know that the brick color at the substation is more of a classic color, right? Like that ruby red, and this is intentionally going to be slightly different, correct?
yeah, so you can see there's a warmer, redder brick that is, when you look at it against the darker brick, it'll appear like red brick. If you look at it against a red brick, it's going to appear a little bit on the kind of rust color side of a red brick. They're a very nice brick. If people want to see them in person, we can certainly arrange that. They have some nice iron spotting in them, so they have a little bit of texture to them. I think that is pretty interesting. I think it'll be a very nice brick. They're also a very hard brick. So when we're doing things like the core bowling and things like that, we want to make sure we pick a very hard brick so that it lasts a long time in our New England winters.
Any other questions, comments on the design? All right, seeing none, we can keep going.
So all of that stuff kind of ties into energy in more or less ways, depending on what it is. So we do have a bit of an update on our energy modeling. So from last month, this is basically the same slide. We're still hovering about the same range. We have completed our TEDI modeling, so separate from the energy modeling for incentives for the public safety building. For code compliance at public safety, we're required to do a TEDI model. So we've completed that and we're within compliance based on where we are at the EUI of about 47. So we've complied with the code, but we're still not hitting our energy target for our energy incentives. We'd like to do better. Same thing on fire station. We're still hovering above a bit where we'd like to be. TEDI modeling is not required on that one or the public works, so those two are already in code compliance. There's no issue there. There's no additional calculations needed for those because they don't fall into the TEDI pathway of the stretch code. But working with the team and the energy modelers, we've gone and tried to identify at least items that we can look at and what their potential EUI might be. So we're looking at potential reductions. We haven't made the changes yet. We're evaluating them still. So it'll take a little bit more time for us to get through these things and seeing, can we really get there? So on the public safety, we've identified about 9 EUI that we think we're able to get out of the building, going from a 47 to about a 38, 39, which would get us just below where our energy target would be. Again, if we can get all of those things incorporated and they actually kind of, work into the model the way we think they might. And then fire substation, again, we've, identified some that we think we can drop, 10 or so points, maybe more, based on some things. So last month we showed this slide and we've added some more context to it. So instead of just one category I'm highlighting 2 now on kind of where we think there is potential to save. So the first, we'll start with public safety, is increasing the fan efficiency of the RTUs. That big green bar that is ventilation fans, that's really what's driving a lot of the energy. So if we make the fans more efficient, we can potentially save some energy there. And the second is this original EUI model is still using a code prescriptive lighting density. So we're really fine tuning the lighting plan and getting an actual on the lighting controls, getting an actual on the lighting fixtures and seeing if we can drive that down based on the actuals that we have. So same thing kind of applies to the fire substation, and I would say even at Public Works, right? Once we get those final lighting designs settled down, make sure we get the actual efficiencies of the fixtures, we will probably see some drop in the EUI for area lights and DPW as well. But on the fire substation, again, same thing, fan efficiency. Can we make the fans more efficient in the RTUs? Can we improve the controls on a particular RTU? Basically, make sure that it runs only when it needs to run, just get it a little tighter than it currently is in the sequence of operations. And then 3, that lighting impact. So can we fine tune the lighting, get the watts per square foot down a little bit, in turn save us on the EUI. So sticking with kind of energy, so an update on the geothermal. So as we got through the design, not really a big surprise here, but there was some adjustment, normal part of design. At public safety, we went up a couple of borings. At Public Works, we cut in half, really, those number of borings. That's not unexpected, right? We knew we had some diversity of loads there. We went with a system that cooled the mechanics bay to kind of offset the diversity, so a little bit more energy usage, but a lot less borings, so we don't have to, so we're bringing the earth back to its median temperature over the course of the year. We're able to get the total borings down. And again, fire substation, just fine tuning the design. We're able to, remove 2 and probably use the existing test well in that location. So we save a little bit of money there. Net reduction wells is 30 wells. So that's really a big reduction and a good savings for the project. We needed it because we had some other things that went up, obviously. And so getting this fine-tuned is really great. And so I buried the lead there, Walter, and I'll hand it over to you for this one.
Yeah, no problem. So just a reminder where we were at the voter approved, which was at schematic design, was 116.74 million. That was construction. So total project budget 150.53. So the PMA team, KBA team, estimators, and engineers all met, I believe, late last week. Worked through a reconciliation on Friday. I'm happy to report that construction designer estimate of record and OPM estimate, which is the check estimate, both landed roughly 300,000 below the approved budget, which keeps us right on track. So we are not anticipating any value management at this time. Just so everyone's aware, that is again including that 149 general bid of a single contractor. I believe next slide, Greg, we can run right through that. So just a breakdown of the fire substation where those direct trade and site work costs break out. We can kind of go right through these 3, Greg, and then hit the last one. So public safety, roughly 40 million direct trade cost on that one, and then about 46 million on DPW. So that brings us to the total breakdown by trade of the 116.330 million, which keeps us right in line with our project budget. So at this time, the project team is not anticipating any value management necessary. One thing to note here is that we are still carrying the 3 alternates, the 2 different canopies. Greg, please remind me of the third one. Sorry, it's slipping I don't have it on here.
So DPW, the canopies are split into 1 and 2.
Yep.
And then the canopies, just kind of bare bones canopies at police would be the 3rd alternate.
Yep. So 3 different types of canopies. So those are being carried as the bid alternates at this point in time. That doesn't mean that those are finalized, and it also doesn't mean that they couldn't get right into the project at time of bid. So further discussion will happen through the project team, and then also through the MDC if there's any other alternates that one could be, if any of those can be removed or incorporated in. But happy to discuss anything estimate reconciliation wise. I believe Andy sent out a link to the MBC so that the drawings could be reviewed. Give this group time to take a look, see if there's anything that they want to discuss at the next meeting before the approval to move forward is final authorization given by Municipal Building Committee.
Walter, I was just going to ask, on that escalation, are we tracking where we thought we'd be? So far, so good?
Yep.
Okay. And what do we have for a contingency? I forget what the percent was.
Are you talking? 1 second. Sorry. Pull up the.
I just didn't remember if we did like 10% or 8 or something. It was pretty high.
Well, so Greg, what do we have in the estimate right now? Andy, are you talking design and pricing contingency? Or are you talking overall contingency?
It's the overall contingency.
I believe we're at 7.5%, but I will double check that, Andy, and get back to you. But
No, I thought it was that. It was something like that. So, and what were those 3 ad alternates? What's the total price tag on those?
I think each DPW canopy is about 700,000, and the police canopies, I think, were, Walter, correct me if I'm wrong, about $1 million.
Yeah, I think it was like 1.2.
Yeah,
1.2.
Yep.
So yeah, you're looking at about 1.9 million or so in the. Chris, you don't have it up, do you?
I'm popping it open.
Yeah, sorry, I had it open before.
Yep.
For overall, so at this stage, Andy, we would say that it's hopeful that we'd get them, but we're certainly not below budget enough to incorporate them into the base bid.
Correct.
They would have to remain alternates at this point because we are hovering very close to the construction budget.
And anyone else have any questions or comments about those estimates from the MBC?
All right.
And just Walter, to your point, the estimate does carry 1% for escalation and 2% for design and pricing contingency. So there are still those kind of baked in contingencies to cover from 80% to 100% design.
Yep. Right. We can jump right to the schedule slides. So here's the updated project schedule. This incorporates the 3 sites and projects being bid as one. We're tracking right on target. Really, the next big items are moving into the 100% design and getting the conscom and planning and zoning wrapped up. So that'll be taking place over the next few weeks, along with the vote to move into final design from the MBC. Greg, anything to mention on your end on master project schedule update? I don't think there's anything.
No, just that there may be some discrepancies in the planning and zoning dates. We're still tracking through to make sure we get those updated, but again, no real impact to the overall schedule. We have time to get through that, we believe.
And really, next steps, as we mentioned, that's really same as master project schedule. We're going to be starting that pre-qualification process coming up here very shortly, but moving right along on all of these items as well. High-level key dates for the committee to keep in mind is that October 8th approval of the 80% CD scope and budget, and then getting right into pre-qualification. And then November 12th, we'll get a design update. So that'll be the second meeting after that, or it'll be the next meeting after the October 8th meeting for the NBC. That's everything we had, really just a calendar update so everyone can see the calendar. We'll get this up on the website as well. But moving right along, progressing right along. So happy to take any questions from the NBC.
Any folks, any overall questions, comments?
Walter,
right.
do you have any concerns about bidding over the holiday? I don't know if it makes sense to give us an extra week or two.
I think we actually incorporated that into the schedule when we did that with KBA.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, we have concerns, but they've been accommodated for within the schedule.
Okay, great.
Any other questions, comments? I mean, that's very good news. Obviously, that we're tracking right where we want to be.
Yep.
I think that's excellent news. And yeah, the only thing I was going to ask, Greg, did the geothermal report, did the final report ever get issued on that?
I don't think it ever got finalized, Andy. We
Okay.
should have that finalized relatively soon now that we have all of the final data in.
Yeah.
I don't like to say it, but getting the drawings into the estimator was taking priority a little bit. So we've made sure they got to the estimator right with the right number of wells and stuff like that. We'll follow through with the final report on the geothermal.
Well, that'd be great. No, and like I said, that was definitely more important. All right. Well, that's excellent. Thank you for your continued efforts. Things are going according to plan. That's great. So, you folks are welcome to stay on, but you might have to jump off. We go into an executive session, but we're going to switch to the school security project. So,
That's all right. I'm gonna hop off.
yeah,
Thank
you got
you
other
all.
priorities, Wilson.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
All right. All right. So I see we're going to move to the Easton Public School Security Project. I do see John here, and I do see Tony. So Tony, we've never met. I wanted to say hello and welcome you to the Municipal Building Committee. Tony is the new Dave Twombly. For those who didn't know, Dave retired.
Good
So,
evening, everybody.
Yeah, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
As you can see, we got a lot of different things going on here. So,
A lot of good, sounds like a lot of good different things.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This was going to be very good for the department heads. So John, maybe you could kind of just take us through a high level. I did send that contract amendment to the group, for their review, so everyone's kind of seen it. But maybe if you just want to talk at a high level, no kind of specifics on securities, about where we're headed. And I mean, it seems just pretty straightforward what we're doing, but
Yeah, I think straightforward is good, and we would agree right now. So obviously we're here tonight to get approval for our designer's contract amendment. That's going to take us through closeout. Right now, we're anticipating a 16-month construction, give or take. We're expecting the next 6 months or next 5 months now of design, and we're hoping to get out to bid in early January. As it stands right now, we're still viewing this as a Chapter 149 single GC project. That's subject a little bit to the fiscal planning that the school department's working through. So tonight we're just looking for your recommendation to the school committee for their approval for this amendment. But overall, we've already begun design development, but really our schematic design was a schematic design plus, and we're moving pretty much straight into 60% CDs. We should have that by the end of October, and then we're going to push straight through. The holidays are what are holding us up a little bit. We wanted to hit early December. We just don't think it's going to be feasible. But our design team is pushing, and if we can pull that back, we'd like to be in December just to get a little bit more favorable pricing. But in my experience, January, you still get a lot of, especially at the price range we're at, you're still going to get a lot of contractors who are looking to plan ahead for the next year or two their work, and you'll still get pretty good turnout in pricing. So at a high level, we got our SD estimate back. It was very favorable pricing. We had initially anticipated around 12 million. It came back at 3.5 million. But that's our designer of record. The OPM, our estimator, came back a little bit higher, but they were within a margin of error that we were comfortable with, going with the more conservative number. We're only carrying, because of the accelerated design schedule and just the general size of this project, we're only carrying a 10% design contingency and 4.3% escalation. The scope hasn't massively changed. We've added a few components, but we're still looking at vestibules, some exterior security improvements, and some interior systems upgrades. If you want me to go into more detail, we can jump into an executive session. I'm happy to do so. But the scope hasn't massively changed. We've just been meeting with stakeholders, the principals, police and fire department, getting their input, and there were some adjustments either from functionality, code requirements, or just things that they think will help the school run more efficiently that were added. But again, we came in well below what we initially anticipated the budget was going to be. So we're pretty pleased with that. And having gone through our designer's amendment, we're very comfortable with the services they're offering and the price point that they're at for those services.
All right. Now, I didn't know, Tony, if you wanted to add anything on there, from a high level.
From a high level, I think John's absolutely correct in his statements, and that his targets of his dates are within reason of the project, of where they're at this time.
So
yeah, that's a big difference.
I will add, I don't know how you guys want to do this and how the school wants to do this, so Tony, feel free to weigh in here.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to share with you guys the SD package, just being secure information. How does that get handled through the town and school channels?
You mean like a link or something?
Yeah, we
John,
can share you an uneditable package. Is that something you guys typically do with this group?
Yeah, we've shared, sensitive information. We typically just, the committee understands,
Okay.
based on the security, aspects of the project, that it can't be shared, I've had conversations with Connor during some of our design meetings and other things that, the members of the public can always request any of these documents. They just have to be
Correct.
redacted. That's all. So it's not, it's not like we're hiding anything, but we do typically send them, and I just put in there a reminder. So if you want to send like a link to that, to want like a SharePoint site or something, you could send it to me, and then I could forward it to the group. That's typically what we do.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I'll do. So I'll send you guys
Yeah.
the full SD package. Like I said, it's a little close. I'd say it's more of an SD plus, but that's kind of what our schedule called for this project.
All right. Did anyone, again, just from a high level, anyone have any questions, comments, concerns about the project? I did send out that amended contract so everyone could take a peek at it. The scope was pretty clear in there. So.
Do we have any proprietary items which this committee needs to vote on?
So we had the school committee vote on
Okay.
our proprietary items. I do have the list if we want to go into executive session, but they're technically the awarding authority for the project, so we approved it through them.
Okay, that's fine. As long as there was a vote by a town entity.
Yes, I believe
it was addressed. Yeah.
I believe it was back in March.
Okay.
I can get you the exact date, but it is recorded in the minutes for that school committee vote.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
I'm just going to ask if John can give me a call when he's done.
Yeah, I'll give you a call, Tony.
Thanks.
All right. And so essentially, the amended contracts just to add the design, bid, construction, close. I think it was around $587,000.
Yeah,
was the additional fee on that. So
correct, and that takes them through end of September 2026.
All righty. So why don't we do this? We'll just we'll have a vote to recommend this to the school committee, because I think, is that the next step in it, John?
Yeah, I think
to the final vote.
Yep.
Yeah, to the final vote. So why don't I take a motion to recommend this amended contract to the school committee? Do I have a motion?
I'll move that. So moved.
Carlson, do I have a second?
Yep, second, Stebbins.
Stebbins. All right, we'll do a roll call vote. All right, I am a yes. Ken?
Yes.
All right, Jamie?
Yes.
Lauren?
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
and Jason.
Yes.
So that motion passes unanimously, so the meeting minutes will reflect that, but you could pass that along to the school committee, Lauren, when you're in there. But it looks good. It's a good project, well worth it. So I think that brings us to the end of all our agenda items. Did anyone have any new business they wanted to bring up, or I think we covered a lot tonight, so. All right, so seeing none, so I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Stebbins?
Do I have a second?
Second, Loomis.
All right. All right, on a roll call vote. I am a yes. Ken,
Yes?
Jamie,
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
all right, Dan,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
and Jason.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you. We had a full house. That's excellent. Appreciate everyone attending, and we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Okay,
everyone.
We'll see you.
Have a
Thanks,
great
Andy.
night.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.